And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Sunday, March 23rd. I am Josh Engleman here to break down a very brief 5-game slate on FanDuel, 6-game slate on DraftKings. For some reason, FanDuel dropped the 9 o'clock game tonight, slightly different than what we normally get. You would expect DraftKings to be the ones behind that, but they're not. That's not what we have right now. We're looking at a slightly bigger slate on the DraftKings side. 4 games locking at 6, 1 game locking at 7. The final late night hammer locking at 9 o'clock. We're going to work our way through this entire slate. We're going to break down everything we possibly can. We're going to have some fun while we do it. And I'm going to let everybody trickle in here. I know we didn't have an event created, so some people probably think this show doesn't exist, but it does. I am here to break everything down for you guys. So make sure you're hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and hitting the notification bell. Those are the most important things that you guys can do as we break down this slate for today. So I hope you guys had a good weekend. It's been a solid Friday, Saturday stretch for me. Gonna get some stuff done around the house today. And gonna watch some basketball because there is a never-ending supply of it, whether it's the NBA or college basketball. Time does Duke play today? I assume tonight at 7. That would be my guess. 240 against Baylor. Okay. Well, guess I'm watching Duke at 240. I need to grab chat again. Apparently that's not pulling through. So shout out to the few of you that are hanging out in here with me today on this lovely Sunday. It's nice to have you guys. Just updating one more thing on my back end here. That sounds weird. There we go. Now I got chat. Now I've got chat. So let's just break this down. I'm going to take my time. We'll hit what we can. We'll look at what we need to. We will start it off with the Philadelphia 76ers. They are 11-point underdogs in Atlanta. It's a 237 total. Sixers obviously aggressively shorthanded as they have been for what feels like forever. No Adam Bona, no Andre Drummond, no Tyrese Maxey, no Kelly Oubre, Lonnie Walker out once again. So, we're probably going to see Jeff Doughton get back into the rotation. Alex Reese didn't play last time out. We probably see him get back into the rotation. I've changed the highlighting on the screen, and I might need to change the order of this one now. If a player is highlighted in green, they're a top 10 play. If they're highlighted in blue, they are a 11 to 20. And then if they're highlighted in yellow, they are 21 to 30. Most interesting guy, it appears, from Philly right now is going to be Guerschon Yabusele. Got big minutes last time out for Philly. They're obviously shorthanded again in the front court. So Yabu in their last game played 38 minutes. Now, obviously, we can't expect that. We've got 31 in for Yabusele today. And I think that looks good. 5,200 power forward center eligible. He's over a 6x value. He's a fantasy point per minute guy. We have him 41% optimal. He's only 27% owned. He ranks 4th right now on the slate. So I think Yabu is the priority coming out of Philadelphia. I think it's very reasonable to get to Justin Edwards or Jared Butler. Butler, the minutes have just been there. He's 6,200. He's point guard, shooting guard eligible. He's a really good per minute guy. 19% optimal, 15% ownership, looking a little under-owned, ranks 13th. Justin Edwards, kind of the opposite. Not a great per minute guy, around 0.8, but he's 4,500. He's small forward, power forward eligible. He's been playing, 30 plus minutes pretty regularly. 13% optimal, 22% owned. He's basically properly owned for this slate at this point. And then you've got Ricky Council. We got him in for 26 minutes. He's small forward, power forward eligible, 4,700, 5.6x value. 11% optimal, 7% owned. He showed up in 12% of my sims, so I got a little bit more of Ricky Council. Obviously, we've seen Chuma Okeke play bigger minutes as of late. Not the best per minute guy, but a valid 5% owned value option. I'm going to say it again. I don't anticipate having very much of Quentin Grimes. He's now up to 9K. Point guard, shooting guard eligible on DraftKings. Only a 4X value. He's 1% owned. He ranks 75th. You know, as you get more value, you can start to get to these guys a little bit more, but I just don't see it. I didn't get a share of him in 150 lineups when I ran my sims. He's not owned. He's not optimal. He's not expected to boom. I have very little interest in Quentin Grimes today. And I don't have any real interest in anything else. It's Yabu as the number one guy. Jared Butler and Justin Edwards would be like second, tied for second. And then Ricky Council would be your pretty clear fourth, with Chuma Okeke being totally fine as a value option. Now, if we look on the FanDuel side, this is a little bit different. Jared Butler looks way better on FanDuel than he does on DraftKings. He's 5,500. He's projected for 40% ownership. Jared Butler ranks second on FanDuel, so you want to pay attention to him. And then Yabu is power forward only, 5,600. He's 20% owned. Still a top 10 play, but not as good as he is on DraftKings. Jared Butler, the much better play on the FanDuel end, as is Ricky Council. 4,900 for Council on FanDuel. Shooting guard only, 5.2x his salary. 23% optimal, 24% owned. Those three guys are the guys you're paying attention to on the FanDuel end. I don't think you're looking too much at someone like Justin Edwards. And then, you know, Grimes is 8,500 here. He is pulling 7% ownership. That seems fine on the FanDuel end. He's a much better play on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. He's not a good play anywhere, but he's rosterable on FanDuel. That's what we have for Philly right now. Do you guys have anything interesting from the Philadelphia 76ers right now? Anything that catches your eye? Nothing crazy, right? It's just Yabu. Let's see if we have any bets. Anything on the Philly side? No, not really. Got a couple really good bets that we will get to, but Jared Butler, where'd that go? Jared Butler, 2 OddsShopper rating, 2.2% EV, under 5.5 assists. So we do have an okay line for Philly, but not nearly the priority as much as we have of everything else. Now on the Atlanta end, obviously they're pretty sizable favorites. They look good as well because they get to face Philadelphia. And you're seeing 3 guys from Atlanta on DraftKings in the top 10. Number 3 is $7,400 Onyeka Okongwu. Great matchup for him. No real center threats on the opposite side. He's a 5.7x value. He's in 50% of my lineups, only 23% owned. So big stand on Okongwu. Big stand on Dyson Daniels. Point guard, shooting guard eligible, 7K. 5.5x value. 1.1 fantasy points per minute. 38% optimal. So I'm 2xing Dyson Daniels. I'm over the field on 8th ranked Trae Young. 9,800, point guard only, 5.1x value. He's in 28% of my lineups. So big stand on Okongwu, big stand on Dyson Daniels, big stand on Trae Young. All 3 guys in the top 10. And I'm getting to Zachary Risachet as a contrarian play. Small forward, power forward eligibility on Risachet. He's a fantasy point per minute on the dot, 4,600. 12% optimal, 5% owned. He ranks 23rd. I got 20% of him. So I think Risachet is looking like a really nice tournament pivot. And I think a lot of value or a lot of volume to Trae Young, to Dyson Daniels, and Okongwu. This is a priority team today. The total's great. The matchup's great. The salaries here are very helpful. You know, we don't have an injury report on Atlanta yet. So technically speaking, this could look a little bit different. But I'm expecting to have a lot of exposure to the Atlanta Hawks, in particular Okongwu and Daniels. But we'll see. This could look a little bit different if anybody ends up getting ruled out. Now on the FanDuel end, it's a little different. Okongwu and Daniels are still big priorities on FanDuel. 8,100 for Okongwu, but you get power forward eligibility as well. 8K for Daniels, but the scoring system fits him better. 35 and 40% optimal, only 20% owned. They're both in the top 6. So Daniels and Okongwu are the same. Trey is not as good on FanDuel, but he's still good. He ranks 19th. He's 21% optimal, 17% owned at 9,700. Still a good play. Just looks a little bit better on DraftKings. You don't get the 3-point bonus here. And then Risache is still fine as a contrarian pivot on the FanDuel end. Small forward, power forward, 5,100, 5x value, 6% owned, 14% optimal. There's a decent chunk of exposure to get to from Atlanta. I don't have much interest in the rest of these guys. Your Vit Krejcis, your George Niangs, your Terrence Manns. It's Okongwu and Daniels across both sites. Trae Young across both sites. Risache as a contrarian play across both sites. Now, we do have a big-time Atlanta prop right now. Oh, and it kind of went away. 13 OddsShopper rating. 6% EV on DraftKings, under 25.5 points for Trae Young. 9% historical ROI. That's going to be one of the best plays we'll see throughout this entire video. Think you got to get to that Trae Young play. Oh, is it gone? No, it's number 1 now. 17 OddsShopper rating, 6.7% EV. The best OddsShopper play that we have. So if you're there, it's already down to 14. It's moving around that much. Grab it as fast as you guys can. Now we'll go to game number 2. The Charlotte Hornets are 3.5-point underdogs in Miami. 211 total. And this total is the lowest on the slate. It's the lowest pace on the slate. Charlotte is the lowest owned team on the slate. You will note that Charlotte does not have a single player highlighted. Josh Green is probable. Salon is probable. LaMelo is in. No one from Charlotte ranks in the top 30 on DraftKings or FanDuel. The only person that got anything other than a 0 optimal rate is LaMelo Ball at 5% on the DraftKings side. I see this one as LaMelo and nobody else on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I think you can grab a little bit of $7,800 Mark Williams. Center only, 5% optimal, 10% owned, 20% chance of 49 fantasy points. He ranks 36th. So on FanDuel, I think it's LaMelo and Mark Williams. On DraftKings, I think it's just LaMelo. But this is the worst team to look at. I don't have anything else to add here. In terms of Charlotte bets, we don't even have any of those. Nick Smith, 2% EV, under 14.5 PRA is the only one even in sniffing distance of decent value. But there's nothing here for Charlotte. This is your worst team. By far. Now, Miami, they continue to be weird with their rotation. They have decent options, but I wouldn't say priorities. They're just a really weird team to prioritize because everybody kind of looks the same. Like, if you see the ownership on Miami right now, that should explain a lot. Basically, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, Davion Mitchell, Andrew Wiggins, and Kel'el Ware are all basically 15% owned. Now, Ware got bigger minutes over the last 2. He's 5K. He's a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy, 13% optimal, 16% owned. He ranks 15th. He's the highest ranked guy for the Miami Heat. Bam, Davion Mitchell, and Andrew Wiggins rank 24th, 25th, and 27th. They all have basically the same optimal rate. They all basically have the same boom rate. They all basically have the same ownership. So, and they're all in 3 different salary tiers. They're hitting different positions. I don't have a preference between these 3 guys. Whatever fits your lineup structure to me is fine. You do want to get to some of Miami. I will say the Tyler Hero looks a bit over-owned at 17%. We only have him at 10% optimal at 8,400. He ranks 31st, so just on the outside looking in. He's fine. I got 9%, but I don't think he looks as good as the rest of the guys. I think he is a half step behind Bam and Mitchell and Wiggins relative to salary. But that's 5 different guys that you could very easily roster from the Miami Heat today on DraftKings. On the FanDuel end, we do have 2 guys getting a lot of ownership. It's $8,200 Tyler Hero, projected for 40% ownership. He ranks 11th. Bam is projected for 30% ownership. He's 8,400 power forward center eligible. He ranks 12th. Andrew Wiggins is in the top 25. He's 20% owned. Davion Mitchell's 10% owned, even on FanDuel. Hopefully you can get those steals. Where, not as interesting, 6K center only. So on FanDuel, it's Hero and Bam with a bit of Wiggins. On DraftKings, it's kind of like the reverse. Do we have any Miami bets? Nope. Zilch, nada, nothing. You guys like anything here for Miami? Because they do have weird injury reports. By the way, Bam Adebayo questionable, Tyler Hero questionable. That could obviously have a pretty big impact on what we end up getting to in this game, because if one or both of those guys are out, we're going to create some more value here. They started to move that rotation around again. Kyle Anderson left the rotation last time out. Pelle Larsson left the rotation last time out. They went back to Haywood Highsmith. Everything else was just kind of normal now that Wiggins was back. But yeah, if you're going at anything in this game, it's Miami. I think Charlotte is a pretty large avoid for today. So then we go to Boston for game number 3. Celtics are 7.5-point favorites in Portland, 220 total. Juan Garza likes Davion Mitchell. I like that call. Now for Boston, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, they were good. All right, Jaylen Brown is still out. Drew Holiday's questionable. Kristaps Porzingis is questionable. Jason Tatum is questionable. I'm not even going to break this down. Obviously, it completely depends on which one of those guys are in, who's out. We're going to probably get some value out of Boston here. We just don't really know who it's going to be. If Tatum's in, he's 10,900, small forward, power forward eligible, 10% optimal, 10% owned. But if everybody's in, no one's in the top 30. And we just kind of need that news. On the FanDuel side, they look a little bit better. Tatum's in the top, ranks 5% owned. Derek White's 15% optimal, 25% owned. He's in the top 30. Porzingis is in the top 30, although I would argue he looks a little weird. I don't think he looks all that different than Drew or Al Horford. But as a whole, Boston looks a little bit better on the FanDuel side than they do on DraftKings. Either way, it doesn't really matter because we need their news. Tatum, Drew, Porzingis, all questionable. We don't know for sure. You like this font better? Good. I spent some time trying to find one that looked a little bit better, so I was hoping that it would. I got a lot more to add to this. Another view for stats and stuff, but glad this looks a little bit better. It's definitely not Baylor Shireman season, unless those 3 guys get ruled out. But we need that news. We don't know what we're going to have here. So we got to play it by ear a little bit on Boston. We don't have any interesting Boston props to bet on right now, so that's not a direction we're going. Do I have a DM? No, I don't. All right, so then we can look at Portland. Now, Portland's a little weird. Obviously, Ayton's still out. But this is going to be another we don't know what to do here. So the whole game is off the table for us right now. Donovan Clingan questionable. Ryan Rupert questionable. Anthony Simons questionable. Missed the last game. Jabari Walker questionable for the concussion protocol. Still no Time Lord. Jeremy Grant still doubtful. So we don't know what we're totally getting here. Because if Simons and Walker and Clingan are all out, like maybe we're playing a $3,800 Dwop Reith. If Denny is in, and it seems like he is, he's going to be interesting no matter what. He ranks 14th. He's 7,500. Small forward, power forward eligible. I got 19%. He's 20% owned. He's 20% optimal. Denny looks good no matter what news we get. But whether it's Kamara looking better, if Simons is in, not as interested in these guys. If Simons is out, we're probably going to Scoot. If Clingan is out, we're going to Dwop Reith. So there's a lot of moving parts for Portland. There's a lot of moving parts for Boston. I don't have anything crazy to add other than you can play Denny no matter what. But we need the news in this game. Like on FanDuel, nobody's even in the top 30. But if Simons and Klingon are out, well, then Scoot Henderson's going to be in the top 30 for sure, and Dwap Reith is also going to be. So this could be a situation for Portland where we don't like anything, and it could be a situation for Portland where we have a lot of ownership. For right now, we are at the mercy of the news. Portland, we do have a bet on Portland. Denny Avdia, 4 OddsShopper rating on BetMGM, 3.4% EV, under 7.5 rebounds, plus 110, 3% historical ROI. That's a good one to grab right now if you're betting on BetMGM. Highlight best picks with Green. Gary, they are. So, that's a great idea. It's so good that I already did it. All right, we go to game number 4. The San Antonio Spurs. 1-point favorites in Toronto. 234 total. Now, for San Antonio, same injury report they always have. It's the same rotation we've had as of late. And that is creating quite a bit of ownership to your number 1 play of the day, Jeremy Sohan, who is still just 5,400. He is, by all accounts, the center for the Spurs now, but he's power forward center eligible here. He's a 6.6x value, a little over a fantasy point per minute, 67% optimal, 54% chance of 37 fantasy points. He's 72% owned. He's in 60% of my lineups. Jeremy Sohan is very clearly the number 1 play of the day. Not close to me in any way. It's just, I don't know how you would do anything other than get a lot of Jeremy Sohan. I also think you want to get a lot of Devin Vassell. He's 25% owned. He's 25% optimal. He's shooting guard, small forward eligible, 6,900, ranks 10th. So we got 2 San Antonio Spurs in the top 10 on DraftKings. They're both around a 1.05 fantasy points per minute. 2 real priorities here. I think Chris Paul still looks interesting. He's in that like 24, 25 minute range, 4,800 point guard only, 20% optimal, 20% owned, 20% of my lineups, just outside the top 10 at number 11. And then you can get to, I think Keldon Johnson's your next best guy, 4,900, small forward, power forward eligible. He's playing like 26 or 27 minutes a night, fantasy point per minute, 13% optimal, 13% owned, ranks 22nd. We're getting some ownership to Stephon Castle. He's really inefficient. Minutes should be there. The price is tough. He's 6,800. He is a fantasy point per minute guy, but gets there in different ways. 4% optimal only. I'm not as big of a believer in Stephon Castle in this spot on DraftKings. It's Vassell, it's Sohan, it's Keldon Johnson, and it's Chris Paul for me. But Vassell and Sohan, big time. Sohan in particular, the biggest of big time. It's hard for me to see a situation where Sohan isn't the guy today. Do we have any Spurs bets? No, we do not. Tumani Kamara has the biggest OddsShopper rating right now, though, even though we just passed that up. Let's look at San Antonio from the FanDuel side quickly. Very different. Sohan is a priority on FanDuel as well. He ranks 3rd, power forward only, 6,300, 49% owned, 40% optimal. The other priority coming from San Antonio will be Devin Vassell, ranks 14th, 7,500, shooting guard, small forward eligible, 25% owned, 25% optimal. After that, it's a little bit more filler. 10% of ownership to Castle, which looks fine. 10% of ownership to Keldon Johnson, which it looks fine. 10% of ownership to Chris Paul, which looks fine. Now on the Toronto end, yeah, I'm gonna add a color legend somewhere. I'm gonna add the starting lineup designations as well. I'm gonna add an injury designation as well. So we're gonna get a lot more of this added. No worries there, guys. Now the Toronto side, you can make a case looks even better than the San Antonio side. We're gonna lead it off with the top play, which is gonna be Jamal Shed. Now, I know you guys have heard that before, and he played 12 minutes, but today We're expecting 32. He's 4,400, point guard only, 6.9x value, 60% optimal, 40% owned. This is your second best play behind Jeremy Sohan. They are the first two names you click on in a cash lineup. Your next guy up is going to be Jonathan Mobo. And that can be 28 minutes, 3,900, power forward center eligibility, 6.7x value. He's a 0.9 guy, 30% optimal, 30% owned, ranks 7th. So 2 Toronto guys in the top 10. We've got 2 more in the top 20 in $4,700 Orlando Robinson and $8,500 Scotty Barnes, who's point guard small forward eligible. Both guys are 20% owned. Both guys are in that 20% optimal range. Both guys look great. And that's only 29 minutes of Scotty Barnes. You know you could get more. And then I think Colin Castleton is fine too. Not a great per minute guy for a big, which is kind of weird, 0.8, but 15% owned, 15% optimal, power forward center eligible, 4,100. Lots of potential options here. RJ Barrett's back. He's 10% owned. I think that's fine. There's a lot of volume coming into Toronto, and I got it. I got 60% of Jamal Shed. I got 30% of Mobo, 20% of Orlando Robinson, 10 of Castleton and Barnes and RJ Barrett. It's a lot to like in this matchup against the Spurs. They don't have a ton of bodies, so the minutes will be there. They could be on different dudes, that's for sure. We know that Toronto is live for some nonsense. But this is a team I want to get to a bunch. And this is a game I want to get to a bunch. For reference sake, this is the most owned game on the slate. 37% of the ownership on DraftKings is coming into Toronto and San Antonio. And it's the same thing on FanDuel. Number 1 play is Jamal Shed. He's 40% owned. Number 6 play is Jonathan Mobo. He's 30% owned. Number 9 play is Orlando Robinson. He's 30% owned. Scotty Barnes, Colin Castleton, and RJ Barrett ranked 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. They're all 20% owned. So whether this is the FanDuel side, the DraftKings side, San Antonio, or Toronto, you're playing a ton of both of these teams on every site. This is the number 1 game that you can get to. So I hope you're finding a little bit of comfort in this game, especially with Toronto, because you have to. You have to. This is the game du jour. Unfortunately, we don't have any Toronto bets either. Maybe we should talk about something else. Maybe we should talk about this. The MLB season is here, folks. The promo code is Cycle. There is a link in the description of this video. If you sign up for any MLB DFS package that we have at Stokastic and use the promo code Cycle, it's going to cost you $1. And it doesn't matter which day you do it. It's just going to cost you $1 single. It will last until April 3rd. No matter which package you pick, weekly, monthly, whatever, you get our MLB DFS access for $1 until April 3rd. On April 3rd, it will re-up for whichever you chose. So if you picked a weekly package or a monthly package, you're going to re-up at that point. You can cancel this at any time, but you can come in for $1 and get projections, ownership. We have a top stacks tool and a top pitchers tool and a top batters tool as well. We also have all of our simulation package, our single lineup sim, the full contest generator, our post-contest sims, premium Discord, and more. So if you want to come in, this is a cheap way to get in on the MLB side because baseball is here. And the promo code is Cycle. We go to game number 5, which is the last game on the FanDuel slate. They don't have OKC and the Clippers. So Denver is next up. They're 7-point underdogs in Houston, 227 total. They are still without Nikola Jokic. So shout out to the MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Christian Brown is probable. Aaron Gordon is probable. Jamal Murray is probable. So we've got the same rotation we've had for these past couple games with no Jokic. And we're getting a ton of ownership. Look at the ranks for these guys. This is on the FanDuel side. If we take a look on the DraftKings side, it's still pretty similar. 2 guys in the top 10 in Aaron Gordon and Russell Westbrook. Gordon's been starting at center with Jokic out. Westbrook's been starting as well. Westbrook 7,200. Aaron Gordon 5,700. Aaron Gordon ranking 5th overall, 40% optimal, 40% owned. Another cash game play that goes straight in your lineup. Westbrook at 7,200, 23% optimal, 24% owned. Both of those guys look great. They're in 30% of my stuff. You also have two top 20 guys in Michael Porter Jr. at 15th, Jamal Murray at 17th. They're both around 15% optimal. They're both around 20% owned. They both have an MPE. They're both playing north of 30 minutes. Very happy to get to those guys. And then Christian Brown is totally fine. 10% optimal, 15% ownership, 5,800, shooting guard, small forward eligible. We're looking at 5 really good plays here from Denver. A ton of ownership to Aaron Gordon. He's your number one guy. Westbrook, Porter, Murray, all 20% owned, look great. Christian Brown, good filler. Peyton Watson, certainly worth 5 to 10% of ownership. You got to get to a lot of Denver. That's what happens when Nikola Jokic isn't in, guys. That's not surprising, right? We're talking about one of the best scorers, assisters, and rebounders in the league, and he just evaporates. It's got to go somewhere. It's going to everything from Denver. The whole starting lineup is a priority. And it's the same situation on FanDuel as we saw. 4 guys in the 11 to 19 range. Christian Brown at 11, Murray at 12, Porter at 15, Westbrook at 17, Aaron Gordon's 21st, Peyton Watson's 29th. That's 6 guys in the top 30. 5 of them are 25% owned. Peyton Watson's 10. Denver looks a lot like that San Antonio game. You got to get to a ton of it. What do you guys like the most from Denver? For me, it's got to be Aaron Gordon. We do have a Russell Westbrook prop, under 5.5 rebounds, 5 OddsShopper rating, 4% EV at BetMGM. So that looks pretty good. It's the only Denver play, though. It's up to a 5 now. Actually, we have Jamal Murray, 3 OddsShopper rating, 2% EV, 6% HROI, under 2.5 threes made on BetMGM. So 2 decent Denver bets. Tizzle wants Gordon. Yeah, he just looks too good. The minutes are there. The rebounding opportunities are so much better now that he's at center. It's the whole starting 5, guys. With no Jokic, until these prices come back up, it's the whole starting 5. When Jokic gets back, we are not going to be playing Denver for a day or two. Now on Houston, these guys are pretty tough. Everybody's back now. Amen Thompson came back, played massive minutes. Rockets are 7-point favorites here. We got 2 guys ranked. We got Alperen Şengün ranked 18th, 10% owned, 15% optimal, 9,100. Good matchup for him. You got a lot less size with Aaron Gordon. So I think it's very reasonable to get to Alperen Şengün. He's in 22% of my lineups. And then you get Fred VanVleet, ranking 27th, 12% optimal, 10% owned, 6,400, point guard only. I got 11%. I didn't get much else of these guys, though. 5% of Dylan Brooks, scattered shares of Adams and Green. I think $8,500 Amen Thompson's tough to get to in this spot. 3% optimal, 3% owned. It's really Fred VanVleet and Şengün. Little bit of Brooks or Green, I think, is fine. The minutes for Eason and Jabari Smith start to get a little weird now that these guys are all back. Surprised to see the minutes on Steven Adams, but I don't think today's the day for it. But it's really VanVleet and Şengün. And on the FanDuel side, a little bit more interesting. Amen Thompson looks better. He's 15% owned on FanDuel. He ranks 26th. Alperen Şengün and Dylan Brooks rank 18th and 19th. Now, Brooks is pulling more ownership because of his position, but they're the same optimal rate at 20%. And then Jalen Green snuck into the top 30 at 30. 20% owned, 14% optimal, 7,300 on FanDuel. So Houston's definitely a little bit more interesting on the FanDuel side than they are on the DraftKings side. And if we look for any Houston bets, we have Jalen Green, under 30.5 PRA, 7 historical ROI, 2 OddsShopper rating, 2.5% EV. You can get that on BetMGM. But that's the end of the DraftKings slate. That's the end of the FanDuel slate. Let's finish this off with the final DraftKings game of the day. That will be the Oklahoma City Thunder on the road. 3.5-point favorites in LA, taking on the Clippers. There's not much here. Lou Dort is questionable. Hartenstein's available. Jalen Williams still out. Only person anybody's really getting to is Shea, and that's only 13% ownership. He's 11.5. We're a little light on value right now, so it's kind of hard to get to him, but this could change up a little bit. if we can create some ways to get to him easier. 12% optimal, 13% owned. After that, everybody else is 10% owned or less. Cason Wallace is 6% optimal, 9% owned. Chet is 5% optimal, 5% owned. You know, I think Wallace and Holmgren and a little bit of Isaiah Hartenstein in a 150 max situation would be fine. But I think it's really just mostly Shea. And we saw a bunch of OKC props earlier. We got a Lou Dort prop, but it has a negative historical ROI, so I would kind of avoid that one. We've got SGA under 6.5 assists with a 10 OddsShopper rating, a 5.4% EV. That's going to be one of the better bets we've seen. So I would recommend that one highly on BetMGM. Cason Wallace, 2.8% EV, under 16.5 PRA is looking pretty good as well. So some decent OKC options on the portfolio EV side. And then finally, we close it out with the Clippers. Not a single recommended play. No one more than 5% owned. No one more than 4% optimal. The highest ranked guy for the Clippers is 44th in James Harden. Sorry, 42nd in Ivica Zubac. But either way, outside of the top 40, I got one share of Harden, one share of Zoo, and one share of Kawhi Leonard, and that was it. This is one of the worst teams that you could look at for today. As I look at it right now, they are about as low owned as everybody else. They're the second lowest owned team behind Charlotte, and the only thing that you could really get to is Harden, Zoo, or Leonard. And we don't have any Clippers bets. So 6 games up, 6 games down. We're through the DraftKings slate. We're through the FanDuel slate. I am going to build one lineup for DraftKings and one lineup for FanDuel, and then we're going to get out of here. So if you guys can, please hit the like button. We've got Live Before Lock coming up later tonight. I believe that is at 5, but I'm going to double check that just to make sure. I assume it's at 5, given the schedule. It is at 5 p.m. You get Emac and Bellman for Live Before Lock tonight. Let us build the best possible DraftKings lineup. The Czar is in the building. Yabu going in first. Davion Mitchell going in. Don't know what I'm going to do with that salary, though. Jonathan Mobo going in. I'm going to grab Onyeka Okongwu, which might be problematic. Shooting guard, I'm going to get Jared Butler. Small forward, Devin Vassell. Guard, Cason Wallace. Leaves me 12-7 for a forward. So I'm going to be able to upgrade pretty dramatically here. Let's get... let's get Denny Avdia. That leaves me 5,200. So I've got a lot of places I can upgrade. Jonathan Mobo is definitely going to be one of those. I'm going to move Okongwu to center. And now I have 9,100 for a utility, which can be Alperen Şengün. Let's see how this looks. Master PJ, thank you for eyeing that up. I will change that after it runs. 0.8. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Let's take Şengün out. Let's go back to large contest, 35. Let's add Şengün again. I have more value than I thought I did, so I'm going to have to rebuild this. What a balanced lineup. I'm going to rebuild this one. I don't like it. Now that I know how much salary I'm going to have, I can make some moves. All right, 47%. It's not bad. I'll take that. Let's try the FanDuel side, and then we'll get out of here. All right, FanDuel. Ooh, I don't want to do that, but I might have to. All right, Colin Castleton in. Yabu in. Okongwu in. Let's get Ricky Council. Let's get Dylan Brooks. seems like I'm going to have to get Jamal Shed, but he's owned more than I'd like him to be. Part of that makes me want to get to Davion Mitchell instead, but let's get Jamal Shed. We got a lot of salary left to spend. So what happens if I grab Dyson Daniels, Jamal Murray? Yeah, I'm going to have a lot of salary to upgrade with. That's going to be nice. I'm going to get Risache. I got 6,800 left, so I could easily get Colin Castleton out of there and get a better center option. And that's going to be Şengün again. Still have 1,800 left. What happens if I upgrade Jamal Shed? How much better does that get? It doesn't get better. Shed's got to stay. So then let's upgrade Ricky Council. I could upgrade Ricky Council to Christian Brown. That's still 800 left. I can make another upgrade here. It's not Yabu. It's not Murray. It's probably Dylan Brooks. What can I do for Dylan Brooks? I could upgrade to Keldon Johnson. All right, here we go. FanDuel, big contest. The czar of the lineup generator already hit a 50%er on DraftKings. Here's 71.7 on FanDuel. Ooh, 88.6, even better. Bump, 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 bump. Best in the world at building lineups. Shed, Daniels, Brown, Murray, Keldon Johnson, Risache, Yabu, Okongwu, and Şengün. The czar is in the building, folks. The lineups are built. Live before lock coming up later tonight. You know we have some games that we need to pay attention to. A bunch of injury news left to go. I'll try to get my contenders out later today as well for you guys. Thanks for being here, man. This was fun. I love these shows. Sundays are easy. We're back again tomorrow, doing it all again, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Let's see, what do we have this week? We can look at that quickly. Schedule for the rest of the week. We got 8 games on Monday. Could end up being 6 if they drop those 10s. 8 games on Tuesday, 6 games on Wednesday, 8 games on Thursday, 7 games on Friday. Great week of slates on the DFS side, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you for being here. Enjoy your Sunday. If it's nice out, go get some sun. I'll talk to you guys later.